PF Vice President Honorable Given Lubinda, thank you so much for making time to speak with us.
You're most welcome, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to appear on your program.
It's been over a year and some days now since your party was gotten from you by material lawmaker, who is your Member of Parliament, Honorable Sampa. It seems like you are not still fixing the things that others say that responsibility must be on you, because at the time that Sampa took over the party, you were acting president. Are you taking responsibility for the confusion in your party?
First thing first, I think let's not give Sampa the importance that he doesn't have. The coup that was staged on the 24th of October 2023 on the Patriotic Front leadership was not a coup by Sampa. Sampa was just a stooge. He was just a tool in the hands of the one who actually staged the coup. And the one who staged the coup is Hakainde Hichilema. So people must not make the mistake and think that it was Sampa. It wasn't Sampa. It was actually Hakainde Hichilema as President of the Republic of Zambia. And do I take responsibility? I take responsibility for everything that happened in the Patriotic Front during the time that I was acting president. And yes, I was acting president at the time when Hakainde Hichilema decided to hijack the leadership of the Patriotic Front.
Hakainde Hichilema is the president of this country, is a president of his own political party called the UPND. How would you say is the one who took over?
Unfortunately, unfortunately for life, whatever you do, you leave a trail of your footsteps. And in this particular case, Hakainde's footsteps are seen everywhere in the exercise of the coup. Can anyone doubt Hakainde's involvement as President of the Republic of Zambia in staging that coup, which took place on Independence Day? People recall that on that day, Zambia was playing host to the President of Tanzania, who had come to celebrate Zambia's independence. The whole event took place at Mulungushi International Conference Center. And it was so well choreographed that cameras had to be awaited for Hakainde to conclude his celebration at State House, for cameras to shift to Mulungushi International Conference Center. You saw outside broadcasting of ZNBC going to cover that coup. You saw hundreds upon hundreds of armed police officers surrounding Mulungushi International Conference Center, providing security to those who had gathered there. You also saw police officers performing the function of returning officers in the so-called convention that was staged at the Mulungushi International Conference Center. You also saw that in the night of the 24th of October, the police were clearing fingerprints of the so-called elected leaders along with Sampa. You also saw very quickly how they decided to take those fingerprints and names to Registrar of Societies to go and change the names of the leadership of the party. The Zambians remember how that Registrar of Societies, who stood to the Constitution, who stood on the Registrar's Societies Act and refused to amend the leadership record at the Registrar's office. You saw how she was hounded out of the office. And soon after she was hounded out, the names of the leadership of the Patriotic Front were changed. Isn't that clear that Hakainde Hichilema was involved? Do you think the police would have moved had it been myself holding a convention on that day? Are you sure that police would have come to protect us? Are you sure that ZNBC would have come to cover us? Are you sure that we could have managed to force our way to change the names of the Registrar of Society if it wasn't the involvement of the state? So the footprints are very clear. That coup was staged by no other than Hakainde Hichilema.
Recently, we saw that there were efforts of trying to resolve these issues out of court with Sampa, who now is president, of the Patriotic Front. These attempts have since failed, Honorable Given Lubinda.
Again, this shows you that Sampa is just a stooge in this whole thing. You saw how Sampa went and stood together with our Secretary General after the ruling in the court, the matter before the High Court judge last week. Sampa was there with our members of parliament. He was there with our Secretary General. They were sharing the same platform. Why is it that we have not resolved the problem? It's because the problem is beyond Sampa. And don't you focus on Sampa. People are trivializing this. They are making a tool become the hand. No, Sampa was simply a tool. And Sampa has no power over this matter because it's beyond him. This issue is between the Patriotic Front and one Hakainde Hichilema. And for as long as Hakainde Hichilema wants to hold on to this party, wants to hold on to the Patriotic Front, he's using or abusing the power of State House, the power of presidency. That's what he's abusing.
Can you confirm, Honorable Lubinda, that there were attempts really to resolve this issue out of court?
Yes, there were attempts. We were discussing this matter with Sampa. There are several people who went and discussed the matter with Sampa. But unfortunately, the problem is bigger than Sampa.
What is the problem? What is the problem?
The problem is that the one who's holding on to this is not Sampa. The one who's holding on to this is Hakainde Hichilema. And we have not gone into negotiations with Hakainde Hichilema because he doesn't want to admit that he's the one who's holding it. Do you recall when Hakainde Hichilema met with one of the renegade MPs and told him, Nikulimba baba, limbani? Didn't you see how he went and paraded somebody at a rally and said, tell him to introduce himself as a vice president of the Patriotic Front? So it is very clear that the one who's causing all this is not Miles. It is not Chavinga. All those are but just simple little tools. Those are Bobojan. But the one who's holding the Bobojan is the one you must credit for this confusion. And who is that? Hakainde Hichilema.
You've not stood by as Patriotic Front. You've taken the matter before court. Do you expect a proper judgment in your favor?
When you go to court, it is because you have confidence in the court. And you have that confidence until the court itself pronounces itself. But it's also worth talking about that in a country where judges are being thrown out of the bench in the manner that they're being thrown out by Hakainde Hichilema, you obviously will fear that there will be some judges who may not be strong enough, who may do the bidding on behalf of the president. When judges are fired worse than maids, and yet they're supposed to enjoy security of tenure, then you also have a feeling that there may be some judges who are compromised. Now, we also know that there are some judges who are willing to stand up to defend their careers, to defend Zambia's democracy, to defend the judiciary of Zambia. And by and large, if we didn't have any confidence, we would not go to the judiciary. So by and large, we have confidence, and that's the reason why we have taken these matters before judges. The rest we leave to them.
Do you have plan B, Honorable Lubinda, if matters don't go your way?
As a political organization, we cannot sit only with one plan. We have several plans. And as time evolves, people will see the various plans that we have. So I can assure the Zambians that we haven't hit the end of the road. Not at all. We haven't.
The past 4 months, there's been several by-elections that have taken place in the country. Your party has not participated in these by-elections, obviously because of the fact that now you need a signature from the from the president and the secretary general of the party, who in this case is Mao Sampa, and the secretary general, your party hasn't been able to involve itself, in these by-elections. If the court processes drag up until 2026, will you still not participate in these by-elections?
We are certainly going to participate in the elections in 2026.
By-elections, I mean?
The by-elections, for the time being, for as long as there is this illegal provision. Remember, it is an illegal provision that was brought about by the ECZ. And again, it was brought about by the ECZ purely because they wanted to target the Patriotic Front. Never, ever in the history of Zambia has that regulation ever been used. Never. They came about with that regulation purely because they wanted to cripple the Patriotic Front. Because they knew that without that regulation, we would continue to participate in by-elections. But when they came up with that regulation, it was because they wanted Mao Sampa to be used by Hakainde Hichilema.
But isn't it common practice, Honorable Lubinda, that the adoption certificate of a candidate must be signed by the president?
All the time it has been signed by the president or the secretary general of the party without necessarily them having to put their names on it. The signature was enough. Just the signature was enough. And now, because they want to cripple the Patriotic Front, they came up with a regulation that it must be signed by the president. And for by-elections, we could even ask a provincial chairman to sign. And in the past, we've done that. We've asked our provincial chairman to sign. We've asked our district chairman to sign. We've authorized them to sign. But now they insisted that it must be in the hand of the president, in the hand of the secretary general. Why did they come up with that? It was purely because they wanted to cripple the PF.
You see, to me, you look so much defeated, Honorable Lubinda, because even your members of parliament now are gravitating towards the UPND. They're singing praises to President Hakainde Hichilema.
We have heard about one or two, but to generalize that would be stretching it too far. Yes, there are one or two, but this happens anyway. There are some of our members of parliament who have gone and sung praises for Hakainde Hichilema for whatever reasons, but that cannot say that we're defeated, because the majority of the members of parliament are still solidly behind the leadership of Edgar Chagwa Lungu. They're still solidly behind the real Patriotic Front.
That is not true. And I'll give you an example of your own member of the Central Committee, Honorable Boma Lusambo, who recently held a press briefing complaining to members of parliament that are not showing up when President Lungu calls for a meeting. Which MPs are you telling me that are still loyal to President?
We have had several meetings where all our members of parliament have attended. Several. So there are one or two who don't attend.
So your mobilization chairperson was lying?
The mobilization person might have been talking about one or two meetings where President Edgar Lungu went to and the members of parliament did not attend. But we've been having meetings with them. We've had combined Central Committee and members of parliament meetings. And all our members of parliament have attended, except for two or three, Mao Sampa, Chavinga, and the like. The rest all attend our meetings. And they are solidly behind President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. Only last night, I had a meeting with President Edgar Lungu, the Secretary General, and a few members of the Central Committee, and we had representation of members of parliament. And we were assured, only last night, we were assured that the members of parliament are solidly behind the Patriotic Front.
I think also we've seen that on several occasions that President Edgar Lungu has gone to court. You, former cabinet ministers, will be present. But those that are currently serving now, the members of parliament, only a few get to show up. And this is also one of the issues that Honorable Boma Lusambo spoke about, that he expects that all members of parliament must go and support.
That's expecting too much from our members of parliament. They should not abandon parliament to come and escort me when I go to court. No. If they are sitting in parliament and they are members of the Central Committee, they are former ministers who can escort the president, so be it. Right now, as I speak to you, the president was at the Drug Enforcement Commission escorting his wife. I wasn't there, but I know that there are other members of the Central Committee who were there. You don't expect people to be everywhere all the time. That's expecting too much. So the absence of members of parliament when President Edgar Lungu goes to police or to court does not necessarily mean that they're not supporting President Edgar Lungu, because they are.
Now, the eligibility of President Edgar Lungu to contest the 2021 elections is now being contested. Obviously, you know, there were several cases that went before the Constitutional Court, you know, from 2019 up until 2020 that ruled in favor that Edgar Lungu was eligible. Now, these same cases have gone back before the Court for further interpretation. Edgar Lungu is not confident enough that the judges are going to rule in his favor. Actually says that they want to technically knock me out from the race in 2026.
Again, you have to look at the genesis of this whole thing. And you have to compare it also with what happened to the 3 judges. And if you draw parallels, you can see that there is a hand. It was hoping to be invisible, but the hand is becoming very visible. There's a hand involved in this. And the ugly hand of Hakainde Hichilema, unfortunately, is seen in all this. He is the manipulator of all this. It is Hakainde Hichilema who is so scared stiff of having Edgar Lungu on the ballot paper. It is his desire that he must use the court to technically knock out Edgar Chagwa Lungu. Like you rightly said, this matter is concluded. This matter was before the same court 4 times before. And the court ruled 4 times. And if the court ruled 4 times, do you expect a different outcome now? And if there is a different outcome, that has to be explained. And is there anybody who's capable of explaining why the court must depart from the position they held 4 times? Is there a reason for that?
We must mention also that the majority ruling, you know, is the one that we're following. But there was also a minority ruling.
Yes. And the court, that's the reason why they always sit as an odd number, to allow that there must be a majority on any matter. And the majority ruling becomes the ruling. The minority ruling cannot be a ruling. So the fact that the majority on all the 4 cases found that Edgar Lungu qualified means that the court adjudicated the matter and the court determined that Edgar Lungu qualified. The minority ruling was overrun. Now you are making it clear to the citizens, is this the reason why those who held a particular position over the 2016 matter are now out of court, have been thrown out of the judiciary because they ruled against the current president on the issue of 14 days? Is that the reason?
The reason was very clear, that they were incompetent.
How are they incompetent?
They didn't have the requisite qualifications for them to sit
now,
behind
look,
the bench.
You got a job at Diamond TV. You went through the process of being vetted. You were vetted. You were given the job. 5 years down the line, can somebody come and say, no, I alone have determined that you're not qualified? What about the process that you underwent? Remember that those judges, their appointment was initiated by who? Who initiated that? The commission. Okay? The judiciary itself initiated the process of appointing those people. Those names were taken to the president. The president has a system of vetting. And after he was satisfied that these people are qualified, he presented the names to where? To Parliament. The public, members of the public, were invited, come and make comments. I do recall that there was one person who made a comment and said some of these people don't qualify. But the names were vetted by Parliament. They were taken through a committee, a select committee at Parliament, and were approved by the main house. After their approval, they were employed. How can the Judicial Complaints Commission today come and declare that they are not qualified? What power do they have? Are they part of the vetting system? They are not the final authority on the appointment of judges. The final authority on the appointment of judges is Parliament. The fact that Parliament ratified them means that they were found to be qualified. And if anyone wants to quarrel with that, they can go back to Parliament. No other person has the right to just come up and say they are ill-qualified. No.
Not to be...
The other issue that you ought to be asking yourself is, if indeed these people are ill-qualified, what about all the judgments they passed? And they considered many issues. Should all the people whose judgments were handed down by those judges be challenged? Is that the anarchy you want to create in the country? Huh? It's the same as the issue of the eligibility of President Edgar Lungu. If he's not eligible now, it means that he wasn't eligible in 2021. And if he wasn't eligible in 2021, what does that mean to those elections? Whom did Hakainde Hichilema beat? He did not compete against himself. He competed against somebody, and that happens to be Edgar Lungu.
Alongside other political parties?
Alongside other political parties who can now claim that because Edgar Lungu participated, their chances were diminished. Without Edgar Lungu, they may have won. Do you want to reverse that as well? Because the argument can be presented that the participation of Edgar Lungu in that election caused that the other candidates, Peter Sinkamba or Hari Kalaba, lost some votes because people who ordinarily could have voted for Hari Kalaba went and voted for Edgar Lungu. And because of that, they were denied the opportunity to win. Do you see the complication of these matters? We are doing things without delving into the ramifications of the matters that we're handling. All these things have serious consequences.
Not to be contemptuous before matters that are in court, but like I asked earlier, if President Edgar Lungu is not allowed to contest the elections for 2026, won't this be the complete death of the Patriotic Front?
Let's wait for that day. All I can tell Zambians is let's wait for that day.
Do you have plan B?
We have said Edgar Lungu will be on the ballot paper. We have said that, and I want to make it clear. Whether Hakainde likes it or not, Edgar Chagwa Lungu will be on the ballot paper in 2026.
He won't be on the ballot paper if the Constitutional Court rules otherwise.
I am saying Edgar Lungu, as far as we're concerned, will be on the ballot paper.
Even when the court rules otherwise?
Those are human beings like you and me. Those are human beings like you and me.
Yeah, but
and their decisions can be challenged. So all I want to say to the Zambian people is that any departure from what the court has said in the past about the eligibility of Edgar Lungu shall not be accepted. Not by us. Edgar Lungu will be on the ballot paper. Mark my word.
The economic conditions of our people are very dire. Honorable Lubinda, the cost of living has unprecedentedly gone high. Those from the UPND are suggesting that if the Patriotic Front, was still in government, things would have been much more worse than they are today.
I have said to the Zambian people, and particularly to the members of the Patriotic Front, to thank God, to thank Him that we lost elections in 2021. Hadn't we lost elections, you can imagine what Hakainde Hichilema would have been saying now. He'd have been calling all of us fools. You remember when he was saying, how can Zambia, with so much water, not have electricity? Dubai, which is a desert, it has no water, but they have power 24/7. What is the difference? This. Meaning these fellows have no heads. God decided that this man has impressed people. He has told people all sorts of things. If I don't give him an opportunity, people will believe that there is something he can do, which these people are not doing. So let me give him the opportunity. He gave him the opportunity. Now Zambians can compare. So those who are saying things could have been worse, how come things are worse now under them? How come?
Much worse.
Who is in charge?
Could have been much worse than they are now. Even your own members of parliament from the Patriotic Front are agreeing that things could have been worse.
Which one? Give me one member of parliament.
Chavinga.
Look, I've told you that.
Member of parliament.
I've told you that when we call meetings, there are 2 or 3 who don't come. And I already explained to you that Mao Sampa is a stool on which Hakainde sits. So is Chavinga, so is Mungandu. So whatever those people say, don't take it that it's the PF that's speaking. Don't. Tell me if you heard Kapyanga say that. If you heard Kapyanga saying, yes, things would have been worse. Because all of us know, the Zambians know what the economy was like under the PF. Hakainde Hichilema was saying we had so many middlemen in the distribution chain of petroleum products, and that we were stealing 3 kwacha on a 15 kwacha liter of fuel. Soon after he formed government, what happened? He bungled the supply chain of fuel. And now how much is it? 30 kwacha.
Well,
are you sure that we caused that? When a person is a failure, do you know what they do? They blame their teacher. The teacher didn't teach me well.
It's good you bring.
And in this particular case, Hakainde and his bunch of UPND alliance people have just realized how difficult it is to govern, and now they have us to blame. Have you ever heard Hakainde take any responsibility for anything? He only takes responsibility when he wants to give credit to himself. And that man must have a very strong chest. Very strong chest. Because he likes to bang on his chest. Yes, I've done this, I've done this. A man who told you were at that press briefing when he was asking diplomats and asking you, journalists, are you facing load shedding? I've finished load shedding. What load shedding has he finished? And now he wants to blame it on the PF. I heard some strange minister saying, yes, the PF exported power. That's why there's no water in the Kariba. When they took over,
we'll come to load shedding. You mentioned a very important point around fuel. You've heard the UPND justify why fuel is expensive. They're saying that they've removed subsidy on fuel, and now fuel is cost reflective. And what you sold us as fuel for 17 kwacha, Honorable Lubinda, was not the right price of fuel. Actually, you know, you were owing oil marketing companies in excess of $800 million US, the debt that the UPND are now paying today.
Are you aware that Hakainde has borrowed in these 2 years, 3 years, $7 billion? Are you aware of that? If we borrowed because we're subsidizing fuel and running the economy, keeping jobs, keeping health institutions running, keeping schools running, wouldn't you say that was a good thing?
Who was going to pay for this debt?
The Zambians, who are using it? Aren't they the Zambians?
And the Zambians are paying now.
But the trouble now is that the Zambians are paying by closing down industry. Now industry is not, the wheels of industry are not running. Huh? For you to run your television station, you have to burn fuel. It's costing you much more now to run your television station than it costed you before. Because you have no access to electricity. And what did Hakainde say to us about electricity? I am going to export electricity because if we don't export, when we increase the production of electricity, those markets will not be available. Who thinks like that? You kill your own industry for the sake of maintaining the industry of your neighbor in anticipation of your increased production. Who thinks like that? And that's exactly what he did with your maize. We left 1.5 million metric tons of maize. What did he say? If we don't sell this maize, the market will be blocked. We will not be able to sell in future. And now he's feeding you now aflatoxin. And you want us to clap. I will not clap. I will not clap at all. Things would have been much, much better hadn't it been for Hakainde. But like I said, praise be to God that Hakainde has been given an opportunity to prove himself for what he is, a failure. Because now Zambians can compare. That time they were comparing the actual practical realities on the ground with a facade. He was giving you stories. I'm going to make sure that people have 3 meals a day. Now, the same person who said he will give you 3 meals a day is telling you, please save food. When you leave food in the evening, keep it so that you warm it up in the morning. You eat chimbala in the morning. If you're going to eat leftover food in the morning, what about your dogs? What will your dogs eat? Who thinks like that?
Maybe tell us, Honorable Lubinda, what was going to be the economic plan if the PF were in office under these very difficult times? The effects of climate change are evident. The drought is before us. It has not only affected us, it has affected most parts of Southern Africa. And this has affected the energy sector and many other sectors, the agricultural sector as well, and many other sectors in this country. What was going to be the plan, really, if you're in office?
It's not the first time that we're having the effects of climate change. No.
The time that we had these effects of climate change, in 2015, there was load shedding in this country, next 12 hours of load shedding.
And now? Now it is what?
It's 23 hours.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the difference. In 2015, we had a drought, you're right. But the longest load shedding we faced was 12 hours. Now it's 23 hours. What's the difference? Leadership. In 2015, we reduced the export of power. We told our neighbors we didn't have excess power to export. We protected the water reserve to supply power to our people. What did Hakainde do? He told you openly, I'm exporting because I want to keep those markets in anticipation of increased production. And this is the result. And you can't say it could have been worse under PF. No, we have been there. We had a drought. In 2015, we already anticipated a big drought. I was Minister of Agriculture then, and if you recall, I stated openly, I said, the rain belt is unfortunately shifting towards the north. Initially, in the 70s, 80s, the southern province was the maize belt of Zambia because there was lots of water there. Unfortunately, come to the 90s, the rain belt shifted towards the central province, Mukushi area. That's how you saw a lot of farmers moving from the southern province into the Mukushi area. And now what has happened? The rain belt has shifted towards the north. In 2015, as Minister of Agriculture, I came up with a program and I convinced my colleagues in cabinet, let us push more inputs to the north. Muchinga, Luapula, northern province, let's push more inputs there. In the southern part of the country where it is becoming dry, let's encourage our people there by giving them money for livestock. Open up weirs and dams for watering, feeding their livestock. In Western Province, let's come up with a cashew. Let's revive the cashew production because there is not enough water for maize. That is how a thinking government works. And I can tell you, if you go and look at the statistics, from 2015, the northern part of Zambia is the one that is feeding Zambia. Not the southern part, not the central part. It is because people who were in government were thinking. And now what are you seeing? A reverse. The areas which have enough water for maize production are being given meda fertilizer. Areas that don't have water are the ones that are being given loads of fertilizer. What kind of nonsense is that? So the truth of the matter is things have gotten worse now than they would have been ever under the PF. We also told you that we want to ensure that the mines are Zambianized. The mines must be run by Zambians. The ones who are digging that copper are not foreigners. The ones who are digging that copper are Zambians. The only trouble is that the owners of the capital are foreigners. We said we're not going to give them tax breaks. What does Hakainde do? The first thing he does upon being sworn in is to give tax holidays to the mines. You are digging copper. Yesterday we were hearing about the increase of the production of copper by FQM. One would also ask, is this going to translate into increased tax? And we are ashamed as a citizen, as a country, that every year when you look at the budget, pay as you earn is what is the largest contributor to your tax. Pay as you earn, paid by your employees, paid by your citizens.
You've also heard this criticism, Honorable Lubinda, that you left a broken mining industry. In fact, most of the big mines, when you left office, were closed down and the investors were parking and leaving.
Yes, and you know the reason why? The reason was because we were not happy with the way they were exploiting our resources at the exclusion of beneficiation to the citizens. That was the reason why they were packing their bags and leaving. And hadn't it been for the disruption of the UPND, by now those mines would have been run by a government properly, and the money would have been staying in this country.
You're not happy that from the time the UPND came into office, the mining sector has attracted investments of over $7 billion. We've seen expansions of new mines, S3 mines at Kansanshi, the bringing to life of Mopani, KCM, dewatering of Shaft 28, and new mines that the president announced. You're not happy that now the copper belt is back to life?
What you should be telling me is that because of that investment, the contribution of the mining sector to our GDP has increased, and that the lives of people have improved because now the government is able to subsidize because of the revenues from the mines. That Zambians are benefiting from those mines.
The presidential delivery unit says that reports actually that our GDP has doubled.
Has your life improved? Has your cost of living reduced? No. So your GDP might expand, but what is that GDP doing with regard to tax collection? Because you can grow your GDP, expand it as much as you can, but for as long as the revenues are being kept outside the country, it's of no use. And that's exactly what is happening in Zambia. Investment is coming to exploit your resources, but the revenue is not impacting on the people. The revenue is being externalized because you have given your friends tax holidays. Of what use is it? It is the same as you saying, let us go and grow maize. You bring foreigners, come and grow. We're giving you 1 million hectares. Grow maize, grow rice, but don't use it in Zambia, export it. And after you've exported it, even keep the money outside Zambia. Of what use is it? Why then are you wasting our land? Remember that those minerals are a wasting resource. We have said before, even when those mines were having those problems, we said, if we are not capable of exploiting these minerals for the sake of citizens, let's leave them in the ground. Let other people who are wiser than us come and exploit them for the beneficiation of Zambians. That's how we think. It's no use to go and dig shafts, put shafts and dewater mines and whatever, and you're even clapping your hands. And yet when the copper is exploited, you don't even make copper wire in Zambia. You're exporting copper ore. And what is coming into Zambia? Nothing. Of what use is it? Leave the ore there. Let future generations find the ore. God did not make a mistake by giving us all these minerals. He gave those minerals to Zambians for Zambia's sake, for Zambia to be developed. Now you're exploiting those minerals, you're not building roads from that money. Instead, those same minerals, when you exploit them, they are hammering your roads and destroying your roads, and then you are getting NAPSA money. People's money is what you are getting and giving to your friends and saying this is a PPP. What kind of warped thinking is that? Huh? A PPP is meant to bring fresh capital in the market. You don't go and get money from your brother-in-law and say, this money I'm giving to my wife. Huh? And you say we're increasing the capital. You're not. You're just rotating money within the family. If you want to grow your economy, if you want to expand your economy, what do? For major projects such as that, you go outside. Let the foreign investor come and invest. Let them bring in capital. You don't bring them in and say, we're giving you our own money. Here it is. But the revenue from toll gates you can get. And we also give you 25 years to operate this road. And after 25 years, that's when you hand it over to us. But this is your money. This is public money. Why are you giving it to a private player? Why didn't they say, all right, because this money is coming from the public, it's coming from NAPSA. Let NAPSA collect toll gates. Employ those engineers of yours, whoever they are, but pay them for the contract. Pay them. You have the money after all. Why do you get your own money and you give it to somebody and say, I'm giving you this money, come and build my house for me, but then I also allow you to live in that house, or you collect rent from that house for 25 years, and after 25 years you give it back to me. Are you normal? People are laughing all the way to the bank, and you're saying that you're growing your economy. How are you growing your economy? It's just NAPSA money. It is public money.
At least, the president says that at least there's prudent utilization of these resources. He calls you criminals. He calls you corrupt individuals that amassed wealth. He calls you people that didn't work for what you have, today. You, Honorable Lubinda, and your colleagues have been in and out of the courts. Others of your colleagues are now in prison. When this corruption fight started, you were saying that the Patriotic Front are being politically persecuted.
Aren't they?
You tell me.
If you look at all those officers in the Ministry of Finance who were put on forced leave, it's almost a year now. None of them has been presented to court. Some of the people who were involved in getting those allowances are back to employment without any explanation. Others have been thrown out without appearing in court. Why is that? And indeed, this man is saying these are criminals. We have institutions of government. One of them, which he was referring to, was the Financial Intelligence Center. The Financial Intelligence Center every year produces reports. What have they said is the trend? Illicit financing in Zambia is increasing. It's not reducing. Is it the PF that is in charge? No. It is Hagainde who is in charge. And if you speak to them, you hear them saying, there are remnants of PF in government. There are more than 420 today, more than 420 people on the bench at Cabinet Office. Civil servants, senior civil servants. They have been shunted, all because they are suspected to be PF. So who is it who is involved in these illicit financial transactions that FIC is reporting about? Who is it? At least under Edgar Lungu, even his ministers were being followed by Anti-Corruption Commission. You know ministers who lost jobs on the recommendations of the Anti-Corruption Commission. Today, we hear of people amassing wealth. And when questions are asked, the answer is, no, they were corrupt. Tell me, isn't it a corrupt practice to give a friend, a non-friend, you give him a $50 million fertilizer deal, $50 million fertilizer deal, and that friend of yours is buying fertilizer on your market, He's not importing it. He's buying fertilizer which is already readily available in Zambia.
Which fund is this?
I'm sure you know of the fertilizer deal of 2021. Don't you know about it? The $50 million deal? I'm sure that Zambians know about this. I'm sure you know about it.
You're speaking to the Zambians?
Yes. I'm speaking to the Zambians, and the Zambians know. And all this will be unearthed. All this will be told. All this will be told. Didn't you hear about the quarreling over the fuel arrangement? Where everybody else is excluded from the importation of fuel and you allow one person to import fuel. Why are you doing that? Isn't that corruption? That is all corruption. Tell us about the gold scandal at the airport. What negotiations did you enter into with the owners of that aeroplane for you to release the aeroplane without people being tried? When that scandal was unearthed, a minister who was not even in Zambia, outside Zambia, by the way, when a minister leaves jurisdiction, they go out of Zambia, there is an acting minister. That minister who has gone out cannot comment on matters back home. But you heard how this Minister of Home Affairs, he's in Angola and he's talking about a criminal activity in Zambia where there is an acting Minister of Home Affairs. Why was that? And these scandals? Oh, these are scandals. Can you explain how a whole government can be dwarfed by an individual who comes and tells them, I'm going to bring in $24 billion and give me 1 million hectares of land. And you even pride yourselves and say, yes, we're going to do it. You give one person 1 million hectares of land. What is motivating that? So, all I can say to you is that time is ticking. And indeed, if PF were corrupt, if you compare the numbers from the FIC, then the PF was stealing change. Because these fellows are stealing capital. That's according to the FIC report.
You had mentioned, Honorable Lubinda, through your party that the Central Committee is reviewing the interaction that President Edgar Lungu has with the United Kwacha Alliance. What is the latest update in terms of this? But also, we had heard comments from some of your senior members stating that President Edgar Lungu is being undermined in this alliance.
You heard when Secretary General Raphael Nakachinda announced after our last Central Committee meeting the conditions under which the Patriotic Front will participate in an alliance. He read them out. And those conditions were given to all the other parties that want to form alliances with us. And only yesterday, Raphael Nakachinda and the team that we put together had meetings with the United Kwacha Alliance. He reported to a few of us, and we gave him further guidance. So when that discussion is concluded, we shall say what the position with UKA is. For now, this matter is still under discussion. But all I can divulge now is that the other players that are willing to form alliances with us have gone public already. Tonse Alliance, for instance, said they agreed with the conditions that we set up. People's Pact have also said they are willing to partner with us under those conditions. So we shall wait for UKA to also make that pronouncement.
You've consistently mentioned, Honorable Lubinda, that the UPND is a one-term government.
There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind. It is indeed a one-term government. No matter what they try to do, it is a one-term government. And again, I want to emphasize, praise be to God that He removed us in 2021 to give Zambians, to give the whole world an opportunity to assess Hakainde against his own word. And it has become clear that we are having the worst ever government. This government is worse than even the colonial government. If you read your history, never in the history of Zambia have you heard police going to attack a church, going to block the Metropolitan Archbishop from entering his own office. Never. Never in the history of Zambia have you ever heard a president using police brutality against people who are going to mourn. Never. Why was it that we were stopped from honoring President Michael Sata yesterday? Why? Tell me if Embassy Park has become state security. Police, instead of police going out to fight criminals, the police are taken from everywhere to surround Embassy Park, to stop PF, to stop Edgar Lungu from laying a wreath. What more draconian behavior do you want to see before you call it a dictatorship? What more do you want to see? President Edgar Lungu having a discussion, private discussion with a bishop in the bishop's office. Police walk in and disrupt the meeting, all in the name of protecting Hakainde Hichilema. No.
Are those arguments informing your thought that this government is a one-term government?
I'm just showing you how brutal this government is. Leave alone the economy. Just the brutality itself. Huh? I heard Jack Mimbu yesterday. I read his statement he presented to Parliament. Huh? When we took over, there was violence. Does that justify the violence they are committing now? No. It doesn't.
As we conclude,
as a matter of fact, before we conclude, as far as I know, a lot of the violence that occurred during the PF was actually perpetuated by the UPND. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about how they murdered Kungo. They don't want to talk about how they murdered the young men in Chawama, in Kanyama. They don't.
As we conclude, Honorable Lubinda, the Zambian people gave you an opportunity to run this country from 2011. You ran this country up until 2021. You are seeking re-election in 2026. What exactly do you want to do that you didn't do in the 10 years that the Zambian people gave you?
What we didn't do is to continue where we left. We want to come and continue on our development paradigm. We want to come and run the economy the way we are running it, to make sure that the cost of living of Zambians is reduced, to make sure that development is seen for all and throughout the country. That's what we want to come and do. We want to come and continue on all our good programs. We want to come and give an opportunity to Zambians to grow food for themselves so they don't eat aflatoxin. We don't want people to be eating chimbala. No. We want people to come and have enough food for themselves. We want to make sure that the mining sector is contributing to the welfare of Zambians. That's what we want to come and do. And remember, like you rightly said, for 10 years, we learned how to govern this country. And everybody can see. In those 10 years, there was unprecedented development in the country. You just have to look at the roads that we built for Zambians. Look at the schools, look at the hospitals. We have a plan already in place to ensure that there is level 1 hospital in every district of the country, and to make sure that the distance to health facilities for our people is less than 15 kilometers. We had already started on that program. And now this is just a holiday. This 5 years is a wasted 5 years. We want to come and continue. Because I can assure you that there is nothing that UPND will do for us to come and take over from. These 5 years are wasted 5 years.
Honorable Given Lubinda, PF Vice President, thank you so much for making time to speak to the Zambian people tonight.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for the program.